Trey Wallace joins me from Outkick. Trey, thanks for coming on today in the middle of a busy time for you. It has been a heck of 2 or 3 weeks in SEC football, my friend.
No, it is. I appreciate you having me on. It's been wild. I mean, we'll have the first weekend of I guess not craziness when it comes to stuff going on, but other than that, there's things going on in the coaching world. There's things going on in recruiting. We got the playoffs coming up, bowl games, so there's never a break. You know that.
Well, I was going to ask you, I don't even know where to start today because there's been coaching stuff. It's getting close to signing day. We had the playoffs. We had Alabama's big upset of Georgia. In your mind, what is the biggest story around the SEC right now?
I think it's Georgia trying to fix their mistakes from Atlanta to be prepared for the Orange Bowl, which I think they got exposed a little bit on the back end in the secondary, which we had talked about in the past that they haven't been tested like that. I mean, they got into a shootout on Saturday, Chris, and they couldn't keep up. And we wondered what would happen with Georgia once they got down by certain amounts. And, it looked like, the Bulldogs couldn't fight their way back into that one.
In hindsight, should we have been surprised? Because we've talked about Kirby Smart's issues with offense. I mean, we've got a good friend. Let's just call him, for the sake of the show, let's call him Naven Clangus. And you and I are on a group text with Naven Clangus. And Naven has said a few times, Georgia has not played anybody. It's been an empty schedule. I mean, I look at that in hindsight, and he had a point.
I can't disagree in a sense. Because here's the hard part. Like at the time, they played top 5 teams in Arkansas, Kentucky, Auburn was ranked, so at times they were playing these teams. But, now that you look at it, they haven't played a quarterback like Bryce Young, and they haven't played an offense that can get down the field and separate from the wide receiver position. You hate to see Mechie go down during that game, but, he had, I think it was 90 yards up to that point before he went down. Jamison finished, goodness, I think he had a 187 with 2 touchdowns. Like, this was a game where Georgia got popped in the mouth. They hung in there for a little bit, but then you saw the interception that Stetson throws and then the pick 6. And it's like, okay, this Georgia team's good, but they hadn't been popped in the mouth before this season. And we saw they responded on Saturday. And I think you'll see a different team in Miami when they play Michigan.
What do they do at quarterback, and why did JT Daniels not get snaps in that game?
I think they trust Bennett that much. I really do. But here's the weird thing. Kirby Smart comes out post game and says, "Look, we didn't really prepare to run the football this game. Like we knew this would be a passing game per se." Okay, well if that's the case, why are we only seeing Stetson? They must. There either two things. There must be really something going on with JT Daniels.
Yep.
Or they just believe that Stetson is the guy that's going to win them in a shootout or having to pass the football. Because I can't remember a time this season where the kids had to pass the ball over, 16, 17 times. So I think that they better keep JT Daniels and get him a lot of reps over these next 3 weeks, because there could be an opportunity where Kirby Smart's going to have to pull a Nick Saban, and we all know what that means, either putting Jalen Hurts in over Tua or putting Tua in over Jalen Hurts. If it comes down to that time, Georgia better be prepared for it.
Well, look, I don't know what went on there, and I'm not meaning to start a rumor because I don't have nothing to substantiate this, but you and I have both been in the media business for a while. There's always drama around quarterback situations. There's always drama around quarterbacks and quarterback families. And I just wonder if it's something that has nothing to do with any of the on-field stuff. I mean, coaches like to be in charge, as you and I know. I do wonder if there is some sort of extenuating circumstance.
I don't know. I think that they've ridden with Bennett for so long this season, even when times where you would have liked to see what JT Daniels could do throwing the football. I think the locker room trusts Bennett, but here's the thing, though. Kirby Smart just blew his opportunity to win an SEC championship.
Mm-hmm.
You can't blow the opportunity with this talent to win a national championship because you've got the talent, you've got the defense. Even though they got eaten up by Alabama, you've still got the top defense in the country, in my opinion. But they've got to figure out a way and how they're going to put all their chips in, because they can't just roll out there, and God bless him, you can't just lean on Stetson the whole game, even if he throws 2 picks in the first half against Michigan. You got to do something that has life. You got one game. You got one opportunity to take advantage of the talent that you've had and take advantage of this 12-0 regular season that you had. Don't screw it up in Miami.
Okay, let's talk Alabama. Because I look at that team, Trey, and I don't see vintage Alabama almost across the board. They don't have the shutdown corners they've had. Jordan Battle's a good safety, but it's not the defensive backfield. Their defensive line, Fidarian Mathis, is good, but they don't have guys you can name edge to edge like you do in the past. No, Will Anderson is a stud, which we both know. On offense, the line is the worst Alabama line I've seen in a while. Brian Robinson is a good back. He's not a great Alabama back, and they've got no depth behind him. And they had played hamstrung at receiver, right? Because either Mechie or Williams had missed a major part of the last 2 games. But here they are because, my goodness, Bryce Young. I mean, Alabama's had some phenomenal quarterbacks, but I'm thinking what he's done with the surrounding cast, he's going to win the Heisman, and I'm wondering if he's not the best they've ever had.
I mean, he's good, man. And what they did against Georgia, the way they were able to spread them out downfield. Now, I will say, Georgia had some broken coverages back there, and I think we all saw that. But it still doesn't take away from what Bryce Young did through the air, breaking SEC conference game records, and the way that he was able to hit his targets across the middle or even down the field, or having that time, like we go back and look at the Iron Bowl, and this Alabama offensive line wasn't good then, but then they come out and they're giving him 4 to 5 seconds of protection against Georgia. I'm like, okay, this is interesting. Didn't see this one coming. So you look at what, and again, we talked about Mechie being done, but you look at the weapons that they still have on the outside, and you look at what they can do down the field, and even running the football at times, because they can run the football. It's all about getting that push. But I think both teams came into that game and like, look, we're just going to throw the ball. There's not going to be much running involved. If it is, it's going to be a dip pass out of the backfield. So I look at it from a sense that Alabama found everything they needed to put together a fantastic game against Georgia. They out-schemed them. I thought that they did better when it comes to the passing game, in a sense of how they ran their passing game. And when you look at this Alabama team now, they get Cincinnati, and they get them in Dallas. And God loves Cincinnati and their story, man. But if Alabama comes out and plays like they did against Georgia, the Bearcats don't have a shot at the Tide, and we could end up seeing a rematch for the national championship in Indianapolis.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. Okay, let's talk coaching carousel.
Yeah.
Do all SEC teams have their coaches for next year, or is there another round of something that throws this into flux?
I think so. I think we're good when it comes to that standpoint. I know that some Oregon media members wanted to throw out Lane Kiffin's name, but to be honest with you, there's a reason why Lane Kiffin has not gotten a sniff, in Baton Rouge, in Gainesville, in Miami, which we talked about, which I thought, okay, if there was a job that Lane Kiffin would be good at, it would be the Miami job. But Miami, excuse me, the way I put it, sacked up and said, okay, we're going to go grab our guy, Mario Cristobal. We're going to go see if he's interested. So I think we're done around the Southeastern Conference. I don't know who Oregon would, whatever. If you want to go get Lane, that's fine. I don't see that happening. So I think we're done when it comes to head coaches now in the SEC. Now we're getting to that time, Chris, where assistant coaches are going to make moves out of the conference and go to other schools. That's what I'm interested the most over the next 3 to 4 weeks, especially as we get towards the national championship game.
I think LSU and Florida both made really good hires.
I agree. Really good is a strong one for Billy Napier. I want to see what Billy Napier does first in his first year. I like what he did, bringing on Corey Raymond on the staff from LSU. I like that move. I think that if he can put together a strong offensive line, put together, a DC that he knows is going to work, then I think Florida will be fine. I don't, it's hard. Here's the thing. It's hard to say both schools did really great when, LSU goes out and gets Brian Kelly.
Yeah.
Florida gets Billy Napier. Like, there's that step down right there. But I think overall as a program, I think Billy Napier will do good at Florida. I think it's just going to take some time. And good can mean 8 wins to 10 wins, whatnot. Good doesn't mean SEC title and national championship compared to the talent that Brian Kelly has inherited in Baton Rouge.
I'm going to go on the limb and make a prediction.
Yeah.
I think Napier's going to end up being a better hire long-term than Kelly. And this is why, okay? A lot of it's age. Napier has run the gamut of stuff. I think he's lost a job. He is probably going to kill it in recruiting, I think, based on his personality and how organized he is. And he was a really good fit for what Scott Strickland was looking for. I've got sources, I'm sure you do too, that talk about Strickland's being a button-down guy and Napier being squeaky clean. I think this is one where, sometimes a coaching hire is trying to put a square peg in a round hole and it doesn't work. I think they found the round peg for the round hole, and he's young. I just think he's got so much on the ball. No, look, somebody may replay this in 5 years and I may look ridiculous, but I just like what Billy Napier brings them.
Yeah, Billy Napier. Well, and here's the easy out on that. Billy Napier feels like SEC.
Yeah.
Compared to Brian Kelly.
Yeah, let's face it. The Brian Kelly thing felt a little weird, didn't it?
Yeah, it felt weird. I mean, can you imagine Brian Kelly going into homes around the South? I mean, and that's not a shot. That's being realistic.
We can imagine him now. We've heard him speak.
There's a family. What I'm talking about. But I'm just, in general, I think Scott Woodard wanted a home run. And after Jimbo, after him and his best buddy Jimbo talked, and Jimbo said, "Look, man, I ain't taking it. I appreciate it. Love you, brother. Thank you." They gauged Lincoln's interest. Once Lincoln said, "No, I'm good. I'm not coming there." Secretly, he had a deal done with USC probably for a month and a half. And you look at Brian Kelly, I'm not going to say Brian Kelly's third fiddle because Brian Kelly is a top coach in the country. But I will say I think he was third fiddle to what LSU was trying to do, and then they still end up getting a great coach. But I agree with you. I think down the road, I think Billy turns out to be a bit better than what Brian's doing in Baton Rouge.
Okay, playoffs aside, what bowl games are intriguing you involving the SEC?
Ole Miss Baylor intrigues me. That one's going to be fun to watch. Dave Aranda against Lane Kiffin, because it's going to be all Lane. Jeff Lebby, he's off to Oklahoma. I look at the Arkansas Penn State game down at the Outback Bowl. I think that one's going to be a fun one to watch just because Arkansas is rolling right now. I'm not excited for Kentucky, Iowa. I just don't care. And that's
I disagree.
Yeah, I don't know what you're on, but
okay.
After seeing Iowa just get destroyed by Michigan in a resemblance of offense,
similar styles though, right? I mean, it's guys that like to mash you in the trenches, and it's like power versus power, who's going to win. That's why that's intriguing to me. Might not be the most exciting bowl game we've seen, but I think it's a good matchup.
That one's just not on my list of, hey, must-watch bowl games. I'm not saying it's not going to be a good bowl game. I'm just saying must-watch.
Yeah.
No. I want to see what the border game looks like between North Carolina and South Carolina. Mm-hmm. That's, Beamer versus Mac Brown. That's going to be fun to watch. I think another one kind of sneaky, Florida versus UCF.
Yes.
Like that's I don't know if you can say it's a rivalry game because these teams don't play every year, but that's going to be a hatred game. UCF is going to come out and want to beat Florida's brakes in.
And what Florida team's going to show up, right? I think you've got to upgrade it in coaches, but it's a new guy. Are they motivated? I mean, they weren't motivated for a bowl a year ago.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. And then I think the other one, I want to see what Josh Heupel can do against Jeff Brom.
Yeah.
In Nashville. Can this Tennessee offense keep things rolling in a sense? I've seen some Purdue players that have declared for the NFL draft. That's probably going to hurt their roster in that game a little bit, especially at the wide receiver position. But I look at that matchup and I still wonder myself, okay, what's Tennessee going to be like, December 28th and how they're going to match up against Purdue? Because I think Purdue had a better year than some expected. They knock off Michigan State, and Tennessee finished the year strong, with a win over Vanderbilt to get to that 7-win marker. But a lot of those games I just talk about, to me, are tone setters for 2022.
I have a hard time finding a bowl game that's not compelling on some level. Like even Auburn, right? They're playing in the Birmingham Bowl and they're back, which is weird. That's not where Auburn wanted to be. But I remember last time I thought Auburn would show up unmotivated for a bowl. They just beat Purdue into a powder. Probably the worst game.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Houston is a good team. Which will probably be playing for some motivation, playing a little bit of a brand name there. You've got, I think the worst matchup to me is probably Missouri and Army. I mean, nobody's going to be staying up. That's not going to be appointment TV. And Missouri couldn't stop me and you in the run all year, which,
right.
Army's run game is different. I don't know if that makes it better or worse, but, but Missouri got a little better at stopping the run, and they're happy to be there. I mean, to me, there's an angle, at least in all of the games involving the SEC teams.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would even say, I'll tell you a sneaky one. Just keep an eye on it. Mike Leach playing his old team, Texas Tech.
Yep. Well, and look, LSU and Kansas State. LSU going in, I guess, with one quarterback and a new coach. I mean, how does this work?
And how do they play the quarterback? Because they would really like for that quarterback to redshirt. So
yeah, and how do they play? Period. Again, it's one of these things where you've fired your coach. If LSU, right. you're playing for, like, do they show up motivated in this or do they not?
That's a sneaky good one I'm looking forward to. Anytime LSU plays, for some reason you just want to tune in and watch. But that one in particular. So there's a number of games out there that are intriguing. I'm really not interested in Texas A&M and the Gator Bowl, to be honest with you. That doesn't do anything for me. So you've laid out a couple, I've laid out a couple, and I think we'll have some entertaining games in a couple weeks.
Okay, the National Signing Day, that being moved up into December, it's a couple years old now. There's some talk about moving it back because it has really had some, I don't know if unintended consequences is fair to say. Maybe people thought through it, but it's certainly changed the landscape of bowl games, of coaching searches. Where do you think that heads next?
I think they jumped the gun in 2017 a little bit, but also college football landscape has changed.
Yeah.
So it's hard to go back and say, okay, well, they messed it up back then when we weren't handing out these fat contracts and coaches were leaving, right after the season or having deals done during the season. I do think it hurts certain players, okay, in a sense of a coach takes another job or an OC takes another job. A lot of these teams don't have their staffs done or what they're going to be doing in 2022 until beginning of January, maybe even later than that, So I think if you're looking at it from a player standpoint, it would be a lot better to say, and I know some of these players want to sign because that's where they want to go. Mm-hmm. I get it. But we're going to come to a point where you're going to have to start releasing a lot of these players out of their LOIs because you've got coaches that are moving on. And I think once that starts building up and happening, because everybody's got this transfer rule right now, but you only get one time at that. So I'm talking about recruits down the road that are signing with schools, and all of a sudden a week later, their coach has skipped town and gone somewhere else. So I don't know how it gets changed. Greg Sankey's talked about it. How, look, he thought this was going to happen years ago. I think they've got some thinking to do. I think moving it back a little bit would help. If you still want to have 2 signing days, whatever. Have one right after the national championship game, and then have one in February. But, we've taken away the magic of National Signing Day, and we've turned that into December, and now you're having a lot of people take advantage of the system, but also people look at it as like, uh-oh, we've got a problem.
I've always thought, and you see this in basketball, right? They have signing day before the season starts, and of course baseball is its own different thing. I've always thought, why not have one in July or August for kids that know where they want to go? They've made up their mind. You see kids committing as sophomores. Have one then, have another one in February after the season's gone. You get it out of the overlap of games and stuff like that. Now, the issue with that is that I think that coaching changes are less predictable than they used to be. For instance, who among us thought that we were going to go in this season seeing Dan Mullen not make it out of the year in Gainesville? I mean, the contracts are so much money. The opportunities to jump are so enticing when you're seeing teams throw out roughly $10 million a year. To me, that's the variable that's changed. I don't know if that makes my argument not worth it, but I just don't like having signing periods when they play. I don't like kids getting pestered, and when they know where they want to go, they don't want to flip. There's something to be said for stability and peace of mind, making your decision and sticking with it. I mean, that's maybe what I would do, but I suspect I'm in the minority here.
Well, I mean, don't forget Gary Patterson, leaving TCU at the time that he decided to step down. And I'm sure he was still recruiting while he knew that he was not going to be there after this season when they decided to part ways. I mean, I don't know. The summer signing period, if that happened, would bring up a lot of kids getting out of their letters of intent.
Yeah.
Because you're going to see a lot of chaos in all the conferences, from coaching carousels to whatnot, from kids changing their minds. And, it's a tough decision for these players. And I get that. But that's why we've got time set up for it, Chris. So that's what makes it interesting to me.
I think 10 years ago you could have pulled that off. Now I think the coaching thing is so unstable that it probably wouldn't work for all the reasons you just said.
No, I mean, look, the coaches have dipped out, went to other schools and big-time schools over the last 2 weeks. College football is a bit out of control right now when it comes to the money part of it. But that's why you also have to let some of these players start making a lot more money off their name, image, and likeness, which is another story for another day. But I just don't want to hear any coaches complaining about players leaving when head coaches are dipping up and leaving anytime they want to, not having any repercussions for it.
Any topics worth hitting that we didn't hit today before we go?
No, I'm interested the next couple of weeks of SEC basketball to kind of see how that goes before we get into conference play. There's some big-time matchups in the conference with out-of-conference foes. And, bowl games coming up. Signing day is going to be here in under a week. So things are popping off still. And, we have, like I said, we haven't even gotten a conference play of basketball yet. We got to get through these bowl games, get through the semifinals and the playoffs, and we'll see where things lead us, Chris.
Hey, Trey, thanks for joining us. Before you go, tell people where they can follow you and your work.
Yeah, absolutely. You can follow me at Trey Wallace _ on Twitter. Follow all of my writing at outkick.com. Really appreciate you having me on, buddy, and it's always a pleasure.
Yeah, same here. Okay, he's Trey Wallace of Outkick. I'm Chris Lee of Southeastern14.com. Thanks for watching. We'll be back with more video content later this week.